up, this shit said we can't determine who qualifies for reparations, which means you aren't paying attention. But what do you expect from Adolph Reed's Jr.'s son? And Adolph Reed's a whole fucking political scientist who talks about economics but doesn't ever bring up numbers. But you motherfuckers listen to him. So let's go ahead for Touré Reed.
Think about, reparations we touched upon means lots of things to lots of different people. And one of the recurring mantras, because nobody in the policy world is talking about cutting me and Ariel and anybody else who identifies as Black, a check for $800,000 or $900,000. I'll take it if you want to cut it.
Sorry. So first off, if we're going by Darity's numbers, which are the minimum, it wouldn't be $800,000 per person. It'd be $800,000 per family. Again, I feel like we should get more towards the Thomas Kramer numbers, but I like Darity's numbers as a down payment. Like for an upfront cash payment, and then after that, you do all this socialist shit for Americans, and then you give us a few little boons to give us a little extra on top of that shit. Yeah. But we can go from here. Anything you guys got before I play this?
Well, he's saying this in a mocking way, even though, if we're going to be honest, no one is really talking about the shit they want to do either right now. Bernie Sanders lost, and the only thing that really has heat right now is reparations, and which is why they have to do this show. If reparations wasn't on fire right now, they would not be talking about it in this fucking show.
And you know what's so interesting about what you just said, Mud? They're not even criticizing Bernie Sanders for his loss. Like, he lost and he don't care about their stuff no more. AOC doesn't care about it anymore. Instead of them criticizing the people that lied to them, they have to come for reparations. It shows that y'all not serious. So anyway, I just find that interesting.
I guess that also shows why people would watch a show like this and why this type of media just keeps getting more and more popular. Just like bullshit artists, just, start a Patreon here and there, and it's just like this whole industry of just people, just the whole society is so much bullshit, because there's nothing of substance, I guess, besides reparations in this. But I think these people still believe that there is substance behind a lot of these proposals, but. Yeah, Mud's right. They haven't said anything in any of these clips yet, substantively. He's sort of just talked about healthcare a little bit, but he hasn't said anything, really. I mean, in terms of leftist policy, which usually, give us a $15 minimum wage line, and give us something in there. But yeah, we haven't really heard anything in that, because it's weird because last time I checked, we have a Democratic president and we have all this house. So you would think like a lot of the leftist policies would actually be maybe put out, but yeah, I guess the video is dedicated to just bashing reparations. And if you look up Jacobin on YouTube, like the past couple videos, a lot of it is like a lot of reactionary, like anti-critical race theory, anti-reparations,
anti-Black.
Yeah, and you wouldn't think the left, when they're in power, would say something like that. I mean, they should be pushing like some hard policies for sure. So that's definitely surprising. And I think what you see in the country right now, people might not notice it. I've read an article that we've already had the biggest right-wing white backlash in American history, but the people aren't talking about it. There's already been towns like seceding, there's already been like in Board of Ed meetings all over the country. So like, unless the left can really step up, Michael and I have talked about this in DMs. It's too bad he's not here. That like the right people underestimate the Republicans in this country, don't they? I mean, they really underestimate the boom or the white power structure, the white power. I mean, the white power activists are back and they're in the Board of Eds, and hell, laws are being passed now. One of my best friends was a superintendent. I sent this to Mud, and one of the best in Connecticut. One of the best superintendents the really great educator, like does what he can, and he just had to put in his resignation because all the Karens are in there shouting and hooting and hollering about critical race theory and stuff. And if I'm a leftist channel, why am I going to add to that fire? If there's a forest fire, why am I going to put out a video about critical race theory when it's more beneficial to at least have a bucket of water, like I would at least put out a video like Al Jazeera, which I follow, I'm into the Islamophobia. Thank you for mentioning that. I follow Al Jazeera all the time. They put out a video yesterday debunking all the anti-critical race theory propaganda. They followed the money. It was a 6-minute video. It was really hot, really like well done. I'm like, okay.
Think about,
When a school board in a wealthy county in Virginia convened to draft policy on transgender student rights, conservative protesters showed up and disrupted the meeting over something else entirely.
Critical race theory is anti-white and it's not American.
You've probably heard this term, critical race theory, quite a bit recently. Let's debunk a few myths around critical race theory. Like, is it really anti-white?
It really is about putting the question of race and anti-black racism front and center in both examination of the history of America as well as contemporary America.
Despite what parents might assume, like most bodies of legal theory, CRT isn't actually being taught in the majority of K-12 schools. In fact, 96% of teachers reported in a survey that their schools did not require them to teach critical race theory. But conservatives have moved to ban schools from teaching so-called critical race theory in several states anyway. Many of the conservative politicians pushing these bills have failed to define what critical race theory even is, instead offering up definitions like this.
Critical race theory teaches children as young as kindergarten to be ashamed of their skin color.
Many of these bills explicitly ban the 1619 Project, a curriculum designed by the New York Times reporter Nicole Hannah-Jones to put the legacy of slavery at the center of U.S. history.
The 1619 Project is part of the necessary critical interrogation of American history, that American history has silenced for many, many decades. The ways in which anti-black racism and slavery has shaped the society.
The attacks on the 1619 Project fit into a historical pattern of politically fomented backlash against this kind of progressive approach to teaching students about social issues. Back in 1974, conservative parents in Kanawha County, West Virginia, accused their school board of introducing textbooks that, quote, undermine patriotism and Christianity.
The Board of Education tells us that we're going to have to put our children in school. Let me tell you this, Board of Education, I'll put you on notice today, here at this rally, that if it means it, we'll set up our own school system in Kanawha County, and if you don't have it...
So, why is critical race theory the new target for conservatives? Well, let's get back to Loudoun County School Board for a second.
When I heard that teachers and students were having critical race theory shoved down their throats, and the young white kids were being told that there was something wrong with them because of the color of their skin, I became very concerned.
Where exactly did parents like this hear about critical race theory in their school system?
Critical race theory.
Critical race theory.
Critical race theory.
Critical race theory has pervaded every institution in the federal government.
Let's stop here for a second. This guy is Christopher Rufo, and he's played a pivotal role in rallying conservatives against CRT. He's a senior fellow at the Manhattan Institute, a right-wing think tank. The Institute's website describes Rufo as its director of the Initiative on Critical Race Theory.
I think with this critical race theory fight is what we did successfully is we labeled it. People were understanding that something is going wrong in the culture, that certain ideologies and ideas were devouring institutions, and then we put a label to it, critical race theory.
Conservative political operatives see this fight over CRT as a crucial step in the Republican Party's path back to power. In fact, some former Trump officials have been pumping money into and organizing conservative efforts around the issue. That reportedly includes one former Trump Justice Department official who organized Loudoun County's anti-CRT parents group. And this is Jessica Anderson, the Executive Director of Heritage Action for America, the advocacy wing of the Heritage Foundation, a right-wing think tank. Anderson told Politico that her group's priority is the fight against critical race theory, which she said could be one of the most important conservative grassroots fights since the Tea Party movement. By the way, the Heritage Foundation also played a major role in backing the West Virginia textbook protests. There's also the newly formed 1776 Project PAC, which takes its name from the year the Declaration of Independence was signed. It plans to back school board candidates who oppose teaching critical race theory. Keep in mind, 96% of teachers in a survey said their schools did not require them to teach CRT.
The question of school boards and so on is actually an instance, but it is actually set up as a mechanism in which people can think about, or people feel that they have something to say because this is their kid's life that they're talking about.
The right is also using this opportunity to push its own versions of history in schools. Down in Texas, Governor Greg Abbott signed a bill creating the 1836 Project to promote, quote, patriotic education in the state.
A video yesterday debunking all the anti-critical race theory propaganda. They followed the money. It was a 6-minute video. It was really hot, really well done. I'm like, okay. I mean, that's nice, but I don't know, that I think contributes to the solution. I don't know what they're contributing to. And when Mud said that, it made me realize, yeah, we're almost 2 hours into the stream here and we're kind of joking about logic and stuff like that, but they haven't presented any positive leftist policy at all. It's all reactionary. And that seems really weird to me. Sorry for going a little long-winded there, but it seems weird to me, you know?
But it's not weird. Sagar does this shit too. No, Sagar does this shit too. This is for people who are uninformed. The thing is, you put Negroes on the screen, and yes, Teray is a Negro because his daddy's a Negro. And the reason why I use Negro, because my white lady friend, she was like, I understand why you use it, but I feel like I hate that I still can't use Negro because, I don't want to be incorrect. The reason why I use Negro is because before 1965, there was a less than 1% chance that if you walked across a Black person that they weren't a Negro, an American descendant of slavery. So this dude is a Negro. And he is put out here to deflect you from the real issues. So for white people who really aren't feeling reparations and who really don't want to give Black people money, this black-faced Negro, this chocolate-covered socialist who has white racist talking points, who is a whole Black man with Black parents, and I'm not talking about his Blackness as in his race, but he is anti-Black. He is an anti-Black racist with the things that he's saying. And we have to call these people out. So he's a problem. The shit that he's saying, he's just talking around shit. He's not getting to it. And he's misleading people who are trying to listen. Let's say you're a good white person. You're just trying to figure out what's going on. You can't figure out what the fuck's going on because this dude's fucking lying to you. So that's it. Anything else y'all got before I play the rest of this video?
I just got one thing. Go ahead, John. Because it just brought me back to what Mud was saying, what you were saying, Doc was saying, John D was saying. His initial point when he first started talking about race reductionism was you know what, yo, it's structural racism, but first time I realized that race wasn't the problem is because the individual, whether I think he was talking about his teacher or something like that, he boiled it down to individual people in the country being racist. To kind of you know what I mean, say this was sort of problem if you solve the problem, basically us solving the problem of trying to fix individuals won't solve racism and the structural racism. So let's not he's trying to conflate he basically he did some double speak, some trickery right there, a little bit of trickery. We caught that shit. I know exactly what he's trying to do. We know what he's trying to do. He's basically trying to say listen, real talk. So the response to structural racism is attacking individual racism, but I don't really believe in structural racism because I experience individual racism. So let's give everybody everything. No.
Exactly.
I think that's what he's trying to do. It's straight up bullshit. He knows what he's doing. And the fact that Jacobin, this is a far left wing YouTube channel.
Yeah, but the owner is anti-Black. We know the owner is anti-Black because he came out against reparations when we first started the fight. So the owner is anti-Black. His parents came here in the 80s, were able to help him. He's doing better than all of his family members who are non-citizens. because he's a citizen and citizenship means something. And then he takes all of that privilege and everything he's built as an immigrant who was only able to immigrate here off the backs of Black Americans who fought for more fucking privilege, to tell Black Americans they don't fucking own, they're not owed reparations, and to put motherfuckers like this up on their show. And this is why I don't fuck with people of color. I fuck with y'all individually, but as a group, I don't, because y'all be anti-Black as fuck.
Yeah. Only anti-Black. But at the end of the day, though, like real shit, like they will never, on the Jacobin videos, when it's things like critical race theory, race reductionism, the class is better than race. Don't worry about race. And then it'd be some shit like if it's about a specific group within that race, whether Native Americans or it's an immigrant issue, you'll never say fuck the immigrants. Native Americans, why? Capitalism, give your land to everybody. Let's share all your land. LGBTQIA, forget about the alphabet. No, like you need $15. They never do these videos. But race means something different here. They know damn well race is anchored in who we is. Like when you hear critical race theory, race reductionism, race, you know damn well, you feel in your bones they're talking about us, talking about Black people. And they're trying to like real shit, like they're making videos to kind of push that to the side. Like they won't do it to nobody else. Like it's so blatant, this shit is disgusting. That's all I got to say. I'm done. I'm taking a nap. I'm done. Please, I'm done. I'm taking a nap. I gotta go to work tomorrow anyway. I got
so funny. Anybody else before I
He
play
did
the
say
rest
he
of
would
this?
take the check, though. Did you hear that? He said he would take a check. So I mean, that's, you know, as sarcastic as that is, you know, the power of the reparations. I mean, you said 800,000, but I think the calculation that if you really did the Kramer, if you think about it, I mean,
no, Kramer's money. I'm talking about
$200,000 a month. I mean, just imagine that to every descendant of Ada's multi-generation for like 4 or 5 generations of your family, $200,000 a month. And that's the C of the ARC, closure. And that's what a lot of these people that attack reparations, like everybody in the country is on acknowledge. Everybody kind of acknowledges at least systemic racism, I hope. Even some of these guys know. The redress, some people aren't for reparations or whatever, but closure, like people don't get, like the closure is what I've discovered that, you know, just being more involved in this community is that a lot of people are just looking for the closure. Like even people are like, all right, how am I going to know that these racist, whoever people in this country are not going to come back? And that's a legitimate concern. I mean, 300, I mean, so, you know, you talk about but $200,000 a month, you know, for multi-generational, that is the multi-generational is part of the closure. And people like, is like, oh, I'll take the check. Like he made a sarcastic point about that, but that is actually the point of the reparations is it gives you that closure, you know, that comfort to realize that you're actually going to be able to live a life. So it's like, he said that, but that was like a Freudian slip to me, because if you think about, like, I always like to tell people, like multi-generation, 200K, like imagine being able to just like build a business every month or something like that, to be able to defend yourself, you know, like things like that. Like that's like, he just let himself slip right there. It was a Freudian slip. Oh, I'll take the check. Yeah, but it's not a one-time check, Mr. Reed. And I think people just think about that. Like even when I started following your guys' channel, like some people think reparations, oh, it's just this thing, and they'll straw man, oh, it's a one-time check. But no, it's a multi-generational thing. And I don't want to know if any of these people get that, but he just gave himself away right there. I think Torre, just Mr. Reed, I've been saying he gave himself away. But I said, oh, I'll take the check. Well, that's the fucking point. That's the point, you know. Do you see how happy he got? That's the most smile whether it was sarcastic or not. That's the most human emotion he showed, and that I think says enough. If you're watching the video version, I think that I noticed that. And the dumbest far left things, or they'll justify, and they justified Mussolini. Hell, a lot of them justified Hitler in the beginning, right? So it's like the New York Times. So it's like the left wing has so many skeletons in their closet with this. And it's the Italian American community got, you know, reparations for lynching, you know, in New Orleans and stuff like that. And it was because of that
two
targeted
people.
particularist, right? Particularist. So if he's trying to get like you said, John, like the claps from, you know, the white people and claps from the white liberals, I don't know if he's even getting it from the white liberals. I think this is just still just very far left, very lefty, because what this is, it's just, I think a lot of these people see reparations as a mission. It's just fueling capitalism. That's what they see. They see it's just, you're just going to give it back to the bankers. It's capitalism. They're just so far on the left.
Like everybody else does.
You know,
like everybody who got a fucking stimulus check from the fucking government did. Everybody who got that $1,400 spent that shit on a bill. Go ahead, John D.
No, but I just keep saying liberals, and I just want to take that back. I think this is just really more on the far. This is real leftist. I just think that they think it's a capitalist. I think deep down they're not saying it, but I think a lot of these leftists that disagree with reparations see it as it's just a capitalist capitulation. You know, it's something like that. I just don't, that's a theory. I don't know if that's where they're coming from, but I just feel like a lot of people on the far left and this side are so uncompromising sometimes, you know, they're uncompromising. And throughout history, you could find leftists like this. They're even the ones right now that like to deny the genocides and stuff. There's a certain far left that they really like the 100% Marxist, and maybe they want to have their French Revolution, you know? Sorry for taking extra time, you know.
But I'm with you. I just want to let you know that Richard Wolff, you did a show on him. He does not like the idea of reparations. He does not like the idea of Black people getting specific economic policies in this universal thing. I've seen this man defend Joseph Stalin. Like I seen him like blatantly like, yeah, well, he killed some people, but the economic system, I couldn't believe this shit.
That's the type of leftist I'm talking about.
I believe it.
A lot of white leftists, especially a lot of white leftists are like that. I have a lot of leftist friends from around, a lot of leftists from India and Middle East. They don't believe a lot of that shit. A lot of white leftists, the tankies are really into that shit, and that's a weird subculture.
I understand.
Richard Wolff compared reparations for American descendants of slavery to war reparations. Excuse me, when did Black American slaves at the time rise up against both sides, the North and the South? He literally compared it to he literally compared it to war reparations, as if Germany wasn't the aggressor and wasn't forced to pay reparations from war. I can't. It was terrible. I hate Richard Wolff. That's why I hate the Fred Hampton leftists, because y'all have this fucking dude on here and you don't ask him the right fucking questions. You just let him spout off a bunch of bullshit. Like all of your favorites are anti-Black. I know it's hard for y'all to understand, but goddamn, go ahead.
The big question I always have with this version of leftists is if it's more of an online phenomenon or how real it is in the real world. That's always my biggest question with the far extremes, especially in America, is like these leftists, I see them all over Twitter, all over online YouTube. Too. I just don't know if you're in your experience, wherever we're from, if you see these type of leftists in the real, that's what confuses me about society today, you know?
I see them in real life. I've seen them in real life. I got kicked out of union that I was part of because I called them out on their anti-Blackness in Connecticut.
What?
Yep. And my white friend who was part of the union, he defended me, and they called him Hitler. They called him Nazi. Because he defended me for calling them out on their anti-Blackness. I spoke about how I don't like being the token Negro in this space. Like, why am I the only Black person in this union? And I told them, I educated them on the history of labor and unions in the United States. And I was like, okay, so when are we going to read? When are we going to actually do work? Y'all just here talking. When are we going to actually do the work, educate ourselves? When are we going to actually participate in political education? And Black people were the labor force in this country for a long time before y'all white peasants came over yonder. So no, and they didn't like that. They didn't like that I called them out. In good old Connecticut. And my friend defended me, and they called me transphobic and homophobic, and they called him Nazi. And
hilarious. Wow. So being part of the LGBTQAI community don't save you from being transphobic?
Nope. And the reason why they call me transphobic is because I cussed out one of the white trans women in the group and said that you're racist. Well, no, I know how it is to be Black. No, you don't.
Listen.
Transgender.
Being
That's not the same thing as
being trans
black.
is not being the same as being black. Being gay is not the same as being black. Being a donkey is not the same as being black. Being a fucking Latino, Asian, it's not the same as being black. You guys can be the same as black people when white people come and start burning down all of y'all fucking houses. When white people come and burn down Latino neighborhoods, Asian neighborhoods, and all of y'all have to start from scratch. And even with Asians, it was only Chinese that got the nigger treatment. And y'all only got the nigger treatment into like the early 30s. By the end of the Nader period, they weren't burning y'all down anymore because y'all moved into Chinatown for safety. And again, this is only the Chinese. All of these different groups were not here the whole time. So you want to talk about us, but y'all got never mind.
How are you going to prove you're black, though? Do you have like a 23andMe to back that up? Do you have the papers, from the plantation that your family was owned on? Because if you're an African descended black that's not a descendant of slaves, I don't think you'd qualify. I'm sorry.
Well, and I would qualify, but then there's a question of who would come up with the paper.
So here we go. This is how you know. For you people who are first gens, how you know if you qualify for reparations? Was your grandmother born here? If your was your great grandmother born here? Because my great grandmother was born in 1917. My grandmother was born in 1937. So let's go. Was your grandmother born here? If your grandmother was not born here and that bitch ain't got no bones in the ground, you don't get reparations. Yeah, I said it. Fuck y'all. But the actual non-niggerish answer for reparations is to prove that you are eligible for reparations, you have to prove that you have one familial ancestor who descends from slavery, which for me, I have found 4, and 2 of them descend from slave masters. And I can prove them through records. But let's say you can't. If you can find your great grandma or your great great grandma, because this would be your great great grandma. This probably be your great great grandma on the 1870 census, and they actually were shown that they lived here, you qualify. Because if you were here before 1870, most likely you were a slave. Less than 1% of Africans were here in the 1960s. A lot of you fucking people of color didn't get here till after 1965 when we opened the shit up with the Migration Act. A lot of white people got here in 1865. Bernie Sanders fuck ass got here in 1930. And I know fucking white people whose grandparents got here in the 60s. So fuck you. A lot of y'all, people of color and whites, are newcomers. So you don't even get to include yourself in our shit. And Africans too. No Africans who just got here after the Cosby Show are not included. You know why? Because my neighbors next door who are Mexican got here in the 1970s. You don't deserve reparations before them. And they don't deserve the shit either. They deserve the shit. They deserve shit for being Americans. And that's a whole different set of shit besides reparations. Go ahead, Mud. I hear you.
Yo, I just think that they're trying to act like they don't understand the argument, but they expose that they know, because she talked about how Africans wouldn't be included. And then tried to talk about a 23andMe. A 23andMe is not going to tell you like whether or not you're a descendant of an American chattel slavery. So it's going to show you if you're a $5 Indian. It's just going to show you that you're from Africa. So they know better than what they're arguing. This is what I mean. Like, this whole thing is propaganda to try to fool people who aren't like as informed, that don't know what the discussion is all about.
And it's not that difficult to find us. We're all here. We're not hard to find. And these slave owners and these business owners and these insurance company owners, they kept meticulous records of the slaves that they invested in, of the slave labor. They like, this shit is not hard to find.
The
It's
Freedmen
not.
Bureau, the Freedmen Bureau records. Like, the government has, like, honestly, we're trying, like, people are acting like this is such a difficult thing, when in reality, it wouldn't take the government maybe, I don't know, maybe a year with create a unit to investigate this. It wouldn't take them longer than a year to like trace everybody down.
Tops.
Exactly.
I found my 2 slave masters and my other 2 enslaved family members in less than 3 weeks. The only reason why I can't find the other 2 out of the 6, because there's 6, there's 8 total. So 2 I can trace to the slave master. The other 4 I can trace to slavery. The last 2 I can't trace because they're fucking indigenous. That's the only reason why I can't trace them.
Like, I found slave narratives that are written by slaves of Connecticut. I found that in less than a year in Connecticut.
That shit's on the, what is that shit called? Oh my God, LLC, Library of Congress. You can go and listen to the slave narratives. They did the Writers Project, which was part of the New Deal, which they blocked most Black people from. But they literally went and talked to ex-slaves and they told their accounts of slavery. And y'all got to go and listen to this shit, because even back then there were sellout Negroes talking about, oh, well, we're out of slavery, but we don't want no handouts and we're not like those lazy Blacks. So there's always been coon ass motherfuckers within our group. No, y'all gotta listen to that shit, because there's all kinds of stories. You gotta listen to all our stories so you can understand that there's always going to be people who are going to be naysayers of shit that's going to benefit the group because they want to be too proud, or at the end of the day they like their position with their butter biscuits. Anybody else before we keep going? Because goddamn, we ain't got.
No, I had to put my hands up and shout out FDR, because I wouldn't be here without FDR. So I know he didn't go towards the interest of the Black community, but he definitely went to the interest of my community. So I'm just going to be honest that thank you, FDR, for doing those programs, and hopefully we'll be bringing that to paying reparations and getting the pie much bigger. But yeah, FDR did a lot of good to my community. Didn't do a lot of good to the Japanese. Didn't do a lot of good to the Black community, but if you went over and killed some Nazis, even if you were a dumb pizza chef or something, you ended up with a house. And it's this book has a lot about that too. A lot of people say that, oh, Black people were excluded, but you get this book, you'll actually hear, the actual stories. It's so fucked up. And so I don't know if anybody saw me put my hands up. I just did that because FDR, not because he excluded Black people, but he hooked my family up, and that's how America is. We got to be realistic about that. And I think there was a politician on Twitter that said that the other day too. She compared like 2 World War II families, and I think it's a good narrative to put out, because that's where a lot of this started. A lot of these FDR, these New Deal-ish liberal big tent things. That's what this is. This big tent is a code word for white. Yeah, exactly. It's this, that's where a lot of this, I think, if you investigate it, but I probably wouldn't have a house today if it wasn't for that guy, so it's, for some reason in America, these big billionaires become the people that propose these working class policies, I guess. But at the end of the day, they're just racist policies, right?
And I want people to understand, we don't want, listen, I'm not upset that white people got some shit. I'm upset that Black people got excluded. We just want the shit that you excluded us from. Y'all better quit fucking with us before we start asking y'all to actually give us your shit. Right now, all we're saying is, hey, just give us the part that we didn't get. If y'all really want to keep playing these games, we're going to come for you. And on top of that, y'all got a lot of angry poor whites who ain't happy. There's 40 million poor whites. So, let's say half of them are racist. If we can get 20 million to fight with Negroes, y'all fucked up.
Yeah.
Because as much, John talked about all the nice things that happened in the New Deal. Let's not pretend like the New Deal didn't happen because poor whites wasn't running up in rich whites' houses and fucking killing their ass and taking their shit. Like, there was a reason why we had to do this stuff, because shit was getting wild. Well, it was the Wild Wild West. So shit was getting real uncivilized, and white people was acting real unneighborly. And they had to do something to keep these folks and keep running up in these rich white people's houses and murdering their people. Listen, have y'all seen? I love that movie. What's that movie? Not that movie, because it's the other one. It's with Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman. Far and Away. Like the shows, like they were Irish, they were rich Irish where they were, then they ran off to the US, then they were able to like run off and get land and shit. Like, y'all story is different from our story. And y'all motherfuckers are still holding on to land and shit that we didn't get. All we want is the shit that y'all got. We got released from slavery. We were promised 40 acres and a mule. We didn't get that, but you fuckers got 100 acres. And I think it was something like in the video that I watched on the Homestead Act, like 40-50% of y'all completed what you had to do to get that free land. So let's just say 50% of you fuckers who immigrated here got free land, 100 plus acres, at the same time that we were being denied our 40. And I started rereading this book called White Trash. And for rich white people who imported servants, y'all got like an extra like 40 to 50 acres for importing more motherfuckers. So a lot of this money is still in these bloodlines. I keep saying it, but we're not giving up shit. Y'all owe us shit. And if you want to fight against us, you better not have no fucking government, white government handout money in your family. Because if you do, I'm going to ask for an exchange for me get nothing. If me and my people can't get nothing, I want all your shit back. I want that family home. I want that fucking check. I want everything. I want you to live destitute like fucking Negroes. Sorry. Anything else?